Aloha, loves. I have a few things I thought I would share with you today. I had this question come up that was so beautiful. What's the most unconditionally loving thing that you can do for yourself? And you know, self-love has gotten so much more awareness, which is great, been so long overdue, to do things that are loving and nurturing for ourselves, self-care, choosing things that we know we need, choosing to be around people that lift us up, that celebrate who we are and bring out the best in us, those kinds of things, choosing loving relationships, all those aspects of self-care and love, which then often leads us to even the deeper parts, which are the aspects of the relationship that we have with ourselves, the way that we talk to ourselves in our own head, the way that we visit criticism or judgment, and we learn self-love mastery in that, and that's even deeper. And that led me to think on what's beyond that even more, because there's always more. And so what led me to this question was really fun. I was looking at the things that trigger us and how often we may be like pretty immune to judgment or the opinions of others, but then there are certain people, and they're almost always the people we're closest to, or who represent something about somebody that we've been close to, maybe a family member. Oftentimes they are our family, a significant other, and that person maybe can trigger us, or their judgment will land on us in a way that nobody else's will. And then we're back into that piece of, how do I be loving with myself in this? So I was looking at that and realizing that it was really interesting, just looking at why is it that certain people can trigger us when almost nothing else can. And it really came down to being identified with a role that we're playing. And so often then, if it's our family, you know, we're either mother or daughter or sibling or parent or child or significant other. And when we move into a role with someone, then we are necessarily agreeing to the other side, the energetic parameters that they bring to their side of the role. In other words, role identification is always a two-way tango, and we don't get to do it in a isolated space. So what that leads us to is the invitation to non-identify with what we would call the small self. And if you look at the small self, and I call it the finite self, a friend of mine calls it the small selfie. Super cute, since I'm standing here with a selfie stick. It's always the things that we think either that we are or that we do, right? So things we think we are, maybe we think we're female or male or something other, or we think that we are of a certain nationality, or we are a daughter, we are a mother, we are a spouse. And then it's things that we do, you know, we do our work, we do our, the things that we have passion about. And sometimes they fall into categories of what I call the Ians and the Ists. And the Ians are the things like, you know, are you a humanitarian Ian, a vegetarian, an octogenarian? And the Ists would be things like, are you an activist? Are you a pacifist? Are you an economist, a scientist? And all of these things we identify as ourselves. And they're what are the small self, because let's look at it really, if we look at it pretty directly, they're finite and they're limited only to the parameters of this lifetime, and we go way beyond this lifetime. And by the way, so does everyone that we're in roles with, and those are those finite parts. So if you're able to look at the person that maybe triggers you, somebody who is in a role that you connect with and they trigger you, then notice what are the parameters that they bring. And let me give an example. So like say you're not a person of a particular religious belief, but somebody in your family is. And you're used to people having religious beliefs, and you don't really have opinion about that, and their opinions about you don't really matter either. But somehow the person close to you, or the person that reminds you of the person close to you, can actually trigger you in a way that nobody else can, and can maybe even get you doubting yourself or feeling any kind of self-judgment. Well, that's because when we enter into identification with the roles that we play, we are necessarily agreeing to an energy parameter exchange, and that includes the projections, beliefs, and opinions of the person holding the other side of the role. So that may be why when you find yourself triggered by something that nobody else can get you on except that person, take a look at the role that you are playing and you're identified with in exchange with them. And then, can you imagine relationship with that person, like encountering them, having a conversation with them, and they're not related to you, they're not in that role exchange with you? What would you feel like? What would be different? It's totally different, isn't it? Now, for some of us, if you take a moment and just do that, you may notice that it's a little bit difficult or challenging to totally, what would I say, non-identify, to non-attach to your role. Well, that's probably because you have some sense that you might lose something if you lose relationship with them. Like, well, I don't want to lose relationship with my mother. I don't want to lose relationship with my brother, whatever the relationship might be. But here's the thing. We're all playing these roles that are the characters that we've assigned ourselves to in our divine mystery plays. And we are so far beyond that, and so are they. What is real cannot be lost. And what is illusory will always fade eventually. So you can just relax and go, okay, well, what would my life be like if I was not identified with this role? How would I relate to this person? How would I feel about how they feel about me? Yeah, it's pretty cool. And so the role identification becomes one of our most profound invitations into unconditionally loving ourselves. Because when we move beyond identification with the small, infinite, the finite self, we step into what really is, which is our true presence. We step into the nature of what we really are, which is unconditional love. And that feels the best. So it's like we start with self-care and self-nurturing, and then we move into deep self-love mastery, where we really heal and also nurture the relationship with ourselves, within ourselves, our heart and our mind. Then we actually do the most unconditionally loving thing that we possibly can for ourselves by completely letting go of anything that we think that we are. And then we're free, and so are they. The person playing the other role, you know, and I've watched this happen so many times in my family. As I've moved beyond the identification with the role that I play, the whole relationship shifts, and it opens up into freedom and joy. And so we really do end up feeling more love, more self-love, when we let go of self. So I'm going to do a live stream on this. And it's coming this Tuesday. It's part of my monthly membership program, but it's still open to try it for free for 30 days if you'd like. So I will post the link below. And so much love to you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, love you all. Until the next time.